So, guys, day 9 of Giants training camp has officially wrapped up, and there's definitely a different feeling around this offense right now. After some inconsistent moments earlier in camp, something started to change today, and Jaxson Dart was right in the middle of it. You could see the confidence building, the offense looked more comfortable, and there were a few moments that really stood out. But what happened with Dart today could be a lot more important than it first appears, especially when you look at what the Giants have been waiting to see from him. What's up, Big Blue? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Giants. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Alright, let's get into it, because this was a practice that Giants fans really needed to see. For most of camp, the offense had been the side of the ball that wasn't getting it done. You had 2 good practices out of the first 8, and everything else felt like a bit of a grind. But today, that changed, and it started with Jaxson Dart. He went 16 of 19 throwing the football, and that included a touchdown. Now look, it's camp, it's not real football yet, but the way he did it is what stood out to me. He was decisive. He was getting the ball out quick against pressure looks, and that's exactly what this coaching staff has been asking him to do. Last year, when things sped up on him, he tended to hold onto the ball a little too long or just try to force something down the field. Today, he wasn't doing that. He was taking what the defense gave him, and that's a real sign of growth for a young quarterback. And I mean, the moment that really got me was that final drive. The starting offense went the length of the field, a 13-play drive that took them all the way down to the defense's 3-yard line. That's not something we've been able to say much this camp. Along the way, there was a 4th down check down to Deonte Miller that kept the drive alive, which is a big deal because situational football has been the exact thing missing from this offense so far. Coaches actually tried to pull the starting units off the field after that long drive, but the players wanted one more shot, so Jaxson Dart and the offense got that chance. After a quick timeout to sort things out, he found Darius Slayton on an out route against Deonte Banks for the touchdown. That's the kind of finish this offense has been chasing all camp, and it's the kind of drive that tells you the details are starting to click. Now, why does this matter so much? Because Jaxson Dart is basically learning a brand new offense this year. You've got pieces of Greg Roman, pieces of Matt Nagy, pieces of Brian Callahan, all being blended together, and that takes time to feel natural. He's also being asked to do a lot more under center, more play action from under center, which wasn't really part of his game last year. So, when you put all that together, a rough start to camp for the offense kind of makes sense. But you also want to see it start to come together before the season starts, and today felt like a real step in that direction. Staying on the offense, the receiver room has some interesting stuff going on too. Isaiah Likely has quietly been the guy this camp. He's getting looks all over the field, inside the numbers, in the red zone, and he's building real chemistry with Jaxson Dart. 4 more catches for him today, and it's becoming pretty clear that this offense is going to run through him just as much as anyone else on this roster. Then you've got Malachi Fields, who's continued to impress as well, showing that contested catchability and giving this receiver room even more depth. And of course, everybody wants to know about Malik Nabers. He's now strung together several practices in a row, which is more than he was able to do earlier in camp, and the reports on him have been really encouraging. He's making sharper cuts, he's landing well on that surgically repaired knee, and it sounds like he could be working into some live team reps as soon as next week. If that trends the way it's been trending, there's a real chance he plays in week 1. There's also something happening up front that deserves a mention here, because you can't talk about the run game improving without talking about the offensive line. Rookie Francis Mauigoa has already flashed the kind of ability to create movement in the run game that this line honestly didn't have much of last year. He's been a difference maker, springing a few nice runs during camp, and that matters because everything on offense tends to get easier when you can actually run the football consistently. Add in a guy like fullback Patrick Ricard, who this team brought in specifically to bring some physicality back to this offense, and you start to see why there's real optimism about the run game heading into the season. It's one thing to talk about wanting to be more physical, it's another thing to actually go out and get the personnel to do it, and it feels like the Giants did that this offseason. Alright, so that's the offense, and that's the side of the ball everybody's been waiting to see turn a corner. Now let's shift over to the defense, because there's a story developing there that might be even bigger than what happened with the offense today. The biggest thing coming out of camp on defense right now is what's happening at cornerback. Paulson Adebo has not been the starter for 2 practices in a row now. It's been Deonte Banks and Greg Newsome getting the first team reps at that spot, with Adebo working in with the second group. Now, just a few weeks ago, most people, myself included, would have told you Adebo was locked in as the CB1 on this roster, maybe even in the conversation for CB2 depending on how things shook out. So, seeing him not even get first team reps right now is definitely something to watch. Is this the coaching staff sending a message? Is it just about seeing what Deonte Banks can do with a clean slate under a new coaching staff? Hard to say for sure, but it's a real storyline heading into the final stretch before the season. And look, Deonte Banks has looked good, there's no denying that. He's gotten the door open with this opportunity and he's taken it, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not ready to fully buy in yet. It's one thing to cover a receiver in practice when the ball isn't even coming your way half the time. It's a completely different thing to be in coverage during a real game, have the ball thrown your direction, and finish the play. That's been the story of his career so far, flashes of ability without the consistency to back it up. So, until I see him make a play on the football when it actually matters, I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic rather than fully sold. Away from the cornerback battle, the defensive line has had a strong camp overall, and DJ Reader has been a big part of that. The run defense has looked solid through camp, and while it's easy to say that's because things are scripted this time of year, having a veteran presence like Reader anchoring things clearly matters. And then there's Abdul Carter, who continues to look like a completely different player than he was as a rookie. Bigger, stronger, more polished with his pass rush plan, and he's been able to win in more than one way, which is exactly what you want to see from a young edge rusher taking that next step. There's another storyline on defense worth bringing up too, and that's what's happening at safety. Pinnock has been working with the first-team defense over Tyler Nubin, and that's now happened more than once during camp. Nubin has been rotating in with the second group at times, and that's a name that's honestly been a little concerning to track this camp. He's a young player, so there's still time for things to turn around, but right now the reps are not going his way, and that's something worth keeping an eye on as the season approaches. On a more positive note, rookie corner Colton Hood has continued to stand out, and there's been real talk that he could eventually push his way into a starting role at some point this season, even if it's not necessarily in week 1. And Javon Holland deserves a mention here as well. This team invested real money in him, and after a rough first season, he's had a noticeably better camp, which would be a big boost for this defense if it carries over into the regular season. One more thing on the special teams side before we move on, because it matters more than people think. The kicking competition has basically settled itself out. Dominic Zavada has separated himself from Ben Sauls, and after a rough opening day, he's been about as consistent as you could ask for since then. Add in a punter like Jordan Stout, who was arguably the best in the league a year ago, and this is a special teams unit that should be a real strength for this roster instead of the liability it's been in years past. Now let's move into some of the other news, because there was a lot happening off to the side of practice today too. This one is a little concerning. Michael Schmitz was slow to get up after a run play during team drills and ended up leaving practice. The word is he's being evaluated for a possible concussion, so that's obviously something to keep an eye on. To make matters a little more complicated, backup center Lucas Patrick has also been dealing with a knee issue and was clearly laboring to finish out practice himself. Because of that center depth situation, the Giants went out and added another body at the position, signing veteran center Brenden Jaimes, who has appeared in 50 games over 5 seasons, mostly with the Los Angeles Chargers. It's a depth move, but a necessary one given what's going on at that spot right now. There were a couple other injuries to track as well. Cam Skattebo went down midway through practice and looked like he was dealing with a hamstring issue, and he didn't return for the rest of the session. Outside linebacker Brian Burns got rolled up on during a pass rush drill and was slow getting up, though it does sound like it's a minor ankle situation, and he would have been able to play if this were a real game. Both of those are worth watching over the next few days, especially with the season opener getting closer. It's a reminder of how physical this camp has been under this new coaching staff. Practices have gone longer, the intensity has been higher, and guys are getting banged up along the way. It's not fun to see players go down, but there's an argument that a tougher camp now means a more conditioned, more disciplined team once the games actually start to count. So, when you step back and look at today, it feels like a turning point. The offense finally put together a drive that showed what this group can look like when it clicks. Jaxson Dart made quick decisions under pressure, and the receiver room kept showing real depth. On defense, the cornerback battle is heating up in a way nobody expected a month ago, and the situation at center is one to watch heading into the season.